Welcome back, Excellent Leadership Podcast listeners. Today's guest is Robert Vilahamn, head coach of Tottenham Hotspur women in the prestigious Women's Super League. He brings a powerful mix of passion, resilience, and progressive thinking to the world of football. Robert grew up as a footballer himself, growing the ranks of the Swedish system, where he eventually became a youth national team player. After realizing he wouldn't reach his dream, which was playing at Wembley in an FA Cup final, he turned that setback into his motivation. He became a teacher first and then a coach, and now he's one of the most respected leaders in the women's game. His coaching philosophy blends structure, energy, and empathy. He's unafraid to take bold steps, whether moving his family to London or empowering a captain to be the true culture carrier of a team. In this episode, Robert shares how he builds belief in teams, instills confidence, handles the weight of setbacks and losses, and why his purpose is rooted in helping others win both on and off the pitch. Here we go. So Robert, how did you become a coach in the first place? I've heard your story, but not everybody probably knows your story. So you grew up playing.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big talent. I was in the youth national team in Sweden. I was heading for the professional level as a player. But I was not very mature when I was young. I didn't do the extra training. I didn't eat correct. I didn't sleep correct. I left home when I was 16 to be a professional footballer in IFK Gothenburg. So I got a pro contract at a really young age.
What did training look like before 16? Are you walking around with the football as an 8-year-old, or?
Yeah, basically we were 5 brothers who played on the grass field at home, and my big brother was also become a professional early. So I was kind of only playing football. We didn't have anything else what we were doing there at home, right? So, and I was good. I was quick. I was a very good talent, and then I got a chance to move to Gothenburg and getting full-time salary and still go to higher school, right? So, but the problem was to live on your own and have a big salary and have a classmates who want to have parties every week, and I kind of went that way, unfortunately. So,
and it's hard not to at that age, right?
It's really hard, and living on your own. Yeah. So I think if what I'm trying to do with my kids is try to make sure I can be there for them and support them with the knowledge I have, but I didn't have the knowledge, and my parents had so many others, kids to take care of. So they knew that I was in good hands, but to be 16 is really hard to be on your own, to be honest. And you know what? You're not really that intelligent in that age as well to make sure you take the right decisions. So
I just read a book about the prefrontal cortex and our decision-making power, and it's a parenting book. And in it, the author's saying, like, all the science shows that until we're 25, we don't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
So kids just make lots of silly mistakes because their brain's just not there yet. Often they're well-intentioned, but they don't have the behaviors and habits.
Yeah, no, exactly. My bigger brother, who moved 2 years before me, he moved with his girlfriend, so they were a couple living. And I think why he had a bigger success was because he was rock steady with his now wife, and they can actually help each other in that phase. But I was just all over the place.
And girls are way smarter than boys at that age too.
100%.
Always.
100%. Yeah. But I think the reason then when I became older and I went to become a teacher and a coach was because I was 22, 23. I realized I will not reach my dream, which was actually to play in England, to play at Wembley. So I needed to find a new way.
Your dream specifically was to play at Wembley?
Yeah, that was the biggest stadium we saw on television when I was younger, the FA Cup final. And I was like, okay, I'm 23. I probably cannot be that good now, so I need to find a new way. And I was still enjoying football. And okay, I need to be a teacher because that's a good backup plan. And if I succeed as a coach, I can.
What were you teaching?
PE, of course, but also geography, actually. So
really,
yeah, I love to travel, so that was the main thing. Right?
Yeah, that's great.
But in that journey, I kind of realized, okay, I need to find a way to be a coach because that's actually I'm enjoying it, and I can have my revenge. I screwed my football career, but I might be able to find ways to use the knowledge I had and the mistakes I did to make sure I can be a good coach and make sure I help my players to not do the same mistakes, I guess. So step by step, grassroots, semi-professional, reaching the professional level, and then when I didn't really know how to do it, I got a chance to take over the women's team in BK Häcken in Sweden, and then I was like, women's football. I mean, it's football. I didn't really think about it anymore, and they were national team players in the Champions League. So all of a sudden, it was in the women's game. And then
you decided to do this because you were an assistant coach in men's, and this was your first time to be
correct. And if you look at the journey from the Swedish coach, it's not too many coaches who come abroad. It's very hard in the men's game. I was still on a pathway, but I was really not enjoying to be assistant coach because my leadership is built on how I want to lead and what I think I want to do with the players that I did the mistakes and so on. When you're an assistant coach, you need to please the head coach, right? And you need to be loyal. And I was doing that, but I always like, no, I want to do my stuff now. I want to do my thing. And then when I got the chance to go in the women's game, I just realized this is actually a good thing because I had twins, one boy and one daughter, and I was like, both of them were liking football, both of them were growing up in this business, and I was like, okay, now I can be a head coach on a high level. It can also make sure that my dreams come true. So it was like a win-win, and I think after that I actually enjoyed working with women because it's a big difference in one way. It's still football, it's still leadership, it's still a group of people you need to work with, but it's definitely a different history. It's a shorter sport because I haven't been on the stage for so long time, so you can do so much more with your knowledge and everything. So I think it's very useful for me as a teacher and what I want to do with my career, basically.
So you were just saying a moment ago that you weren't able to fully use your leadership as an assistant coach. So tell me about your leadership style and how you developed your leadership style.
Yeah, I think my leadership has grown from day one to become a coach where I am today. So like the first time I was a head coach I was 24, 25. I was a playing head coach. I was playing with my friends and I became the head coach over them. My best man at my wedding was one of the players I benched one game, and it was really hard to work with your leadership in that way. But I think step by step, I'm learning with experience how I want to be. Many people speak about who do you try to be, but I cannot say that I'm actually trying to be someone else. I'm always trying to learn from my mistakes. And the coaches I had is normally when I was younger is perhaps somebody who I didn't like because I didn't succeed as a player. It was not their fault, it was my fault, but they didn't help me. So I'm kind of learning how to make sure that my way of a playing career was not amazing, but I think if I had the right coaches who knew me and what I needed, I would probably be a really good player. So I'm always trying to learn from that and make sure I not do the same mistakes when I'm a coach. I'm trying to understand the players, and my leadership is very holistic. I really want to see the whole person. I really want to understand every player because you cannot treat everybody in the same way. You definitely need to treat them the way to maximum their performance by actually knowing them a little bit more. And then you need to have the standards to make sure you create a group environment where everybody's working together, right? So, I started when I was 24, 25. The first thing I did with my leadership was to be professional because I thought I was so unprofessional when I was playing. I was out drinking beer, I was eating pizza, so I was so unprofessional. So starting in Division 3 in Sweden, you can at least be professional in the way how you act, how you plan trainings, how you act with the players and so on. And then, step by step, I've added stuff to make sure I learn how to lead a group. So the first thing was the professional thing. The second was to add passion. I really want to, like if I'm here with you, if I speak to anyone else, I want to make sure you see that I like to be here because I think you spread energy, and when you spread energy, you get energy, and then you create this magical emotional team building, right? So the passion is for me to show the players that I love to be there, but I also want them to show that they care about what we're doing. Otherwise, it's very hard to work with me. So I'm really much keen to make sure that players that work with me also show some kind of passion. They don't need to be extroverted, but they need to show that they care. After a few more years, you kind of realize that, okay, you need to also stay present. You need to make sure you work really hard every day. So from day one, when I was there to today, I've always been present. I skipped my kid's first year of birthday because we had a game in Division 3, which many say, like, why do you go to that game? But I was like, no, I need to be here and work really hard and show good, professionality and make sure I do it every day. So these 3 words, to be professional, to show passion, to be present, is kind of what I connect with my coaching career, my coaching team, the players. And in that, you do a lot of stuff. But I think that's a good way to collaborate. And then the 4th word I've added, and this is the last word, to be brave, because you need to take some brave choices. Going from men's game to women's game is actually a big thing because it's hard to go back from the women's game to the men's game if you look at coaches who have done that. So that's a brave choice to make sure I go all in with this. And then it's the brave choices to pick and choose a career, to move your family to London and actually leave everything at home. It's a brave choice. And I'm always trying to make sure when I have 2 choices that I don't go the safe way. I go the brave way because I feel like that's the mentality I want from the players, from the staff, that we're not scared to go into this game with a high press or a build-up where we're going to be brave, right? And I think all my decisions is built on that. And it's kind of a little bit tough because you know that you're always going to end up in problems, or you're always going to end up in situations. But I'm trying to push myself and trigger myself to that's the leadership I want. I want people to be curious. I want to be brave. I want to make sure I always develop. So being here today is like, I could have just gone home after work today and just have a good afternoon in the couch, right? But I want no, this is a good thing. This is something that you need to do, and you will learn from it. And it's definitely something that you are brave with, I would say.
I'm glad we're getting to have this conversation. Something I think coaches of teams do really well is what you talked about here earlier. You can't treat everyone the same way. Where I find oftentimes in business, it's not uncommon that a manager manages their team one way, and they don't have as many of the individual relationships or individual styles. Still need the group dynamic and group accountability. How does a coach get to know their athletes on a more individual level? What motivates them, what their behaviors are, how to maximize their opportunity?
I think in Sweden it's quite easy because it's more flat leadership. You don't really have too many hierarchy. You don't have the head of performance. You don't have that kind of roles. You more have a flat leadership, which means that you meet the players a lot more. You have a lot of individual meetings. You get closer to them. You have the lunch around them, and you have everything. And then you can have these talks with them, and you can hear what they speak about, and then you can learn. But you need to be curious about them as well. You cannot just be a leader that just tell them what to do. You need to be asking them a lot of questions, individual meetings. But when you do that, and when you see how they react in different ways, you need to understand why they do it. So I think I have a Master of Education in my backpack, and I think that's a really good thing, because when you are a teacher, you realize to teach students in the classroom is really hard, depending on how you are as a person, what kind of diagnosis you have or whatever. You need to make sure you know how to reach them. And I think when you're curious on how you act in different ways, how you act when I bench you, how you act when I tell you feedback, that's when you start to learn them. And then when you learn that, then you can do individual part to give them feedback on when should you give feedback and how should you get feedback. But you shouldn't be afraid to have conflicts, because I think through the conflicts you can find ways to reach them, I would say.
So in a role within the women's game, how involved is the manager, the coach, in player identification and player selection versus the men's game? Because often in the men's game, the sporting director is coming to a coach and saying, I've got 3 finalists. I have a strong opinion here. Is it happening the same way in the women's game, or is scouting a bigger responsibility right now? Yeah,
for me, it's bigger, because what you have in the women's game, you don't have so many technical directors scouting recruitments, because it's not grown this quickly yet, right? So when you don't have that, you need to make sure you narrow it in what countries you scout in and so on. But for me, it's very important with data, with who they are as a player. It's of course very important. But before I take a decision, you need to have an interview with them. You need to speak to them. You need to ask the right questions to see if they have the passion, if they are able to be present in the talks, and if they actually are the right characters to drive it. And it's really hard to recruit people. I think you know it. Everybody knows it in business. It's like when you recruit not a good employee, it's a big problem for the company. And I think for the group dynamic in the player squad, you need to find the best player and person to build a team, and then you need the different characters in that one. And if you're going to treat everybody different, because I think you need to be able to find different characters. You cannot have 20 egos. You need to have perhaps a few egos that can do that magic stuff. You need to have some really loyal people that can do the work and be good role models. And you need to find the right mixture to make sure you can survive as a coach, because if you have too many egos, you're going to just be in different meetings all the time, I would say.
How do you figure that out in an interview process? Do you use psychometrics or psychologists while you're looking to sign a player, or is this all after the fact that you figure that out?
So the main thing is we check background. We try to narrow down with different coaches they've had before to get more pictures about what they are doing. We just signed a sports psychologist last year full time for the squad to work with them, and now the next step will be to actually add her into that process. So a few questions in that interview could actually be very supporting in how they act in different areas as well. So that's the next step I would see. We also now are recruiting a technical director, because I feel like I need to have support around me to make sure we get short list of players, so I don't need to look at too many players, because it takes a lot of time to do these interviews as well, right? So we're trying to make sure we'll do it like a bigger company or the men's game as well. But it takes time before you get every key role in it.
You have a brave attacking style. How do you, when assessing a player, know if they can move into that type of style if that's not where they're currently playing today? Because it's easy if they're already in a similar type of format and playing with similar type of aggression.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean someone can't adapt from a different style. How do you figure that out as you're scouting?
I think in one way, there's a few players I've signed that I see some, when they do some interviews, how they are quite cool person, how they actually speak in front of that kind of make me like, I like that attitude. And then if you said she's a good footballer, I might gamble a little bit more on that person because she have that kind of cool attitude that I want for the team. But you also know that you might need to work a little bit harder with that person so she becomes accepted in a big group. But I would say that's the hardest point to find. And I think in the women's game is less players with that ego right now, to be honest. I think it's still very much more growing into, if you compare men and women, it's not only the ego, they also have a stronger connection with the group, I would say, in the women's game. So to find a few of those is less easy to find, I think. But the main thing is, though, that's what's coming up now. I had Grace Clinton last year as a Lionesses, really, really cool character with a little bit of an ego, but still so much potential. And when you get to know her and when the team get to know her, how to work with her, then you have this magic. And now she's in the Lionesses, started the last game. So I think you need to find them, but it's not the easiest way. What energizes you the most about being a coach? I mean, for me, it's like the journey of developing my leadership. I'm normally speak to my wife about, I like football, but I'm like leadership more than football. So when I speak about me being a coach in Sweden, it was of course about tactics and winning games. But then after a while, I realized it's not the football I'm actually keen on. It's actually how I make people perform in the highest possible way and together to try to reach a common goal, right? And when I went to England, I have 25 staff members in my staff. It's 50 people that should connect and try to do stuff together. And every day it's problems popping up. And I think it's like, that's what I love. It's really stressful, but in that stress, it's also like, okay, how can I find a way to make sure that the group now find new ways to take the next step? We had Arsenal the other week and we were at the Emirates, it was 56,000 people and we were playing bravely and we were smashed 5-0. And then it's like, when you're standing there in the last minute, it's going to be a tough press conference. It's going to be tough media, the fans, everybody. But for me then, okay, leadership-wise, how do I fix this? How do I make sure I can take steps with my leadership? And I think that's the trigger I have. I want to be the best possible leader. And I'm going to keep working with that every day until I'm basically dying. And I think that's the most thing that I like. I'm in the football business, but I can actually be in some different business because it's the leadership, it's the people. How do I make sure that people collaborate, perform, and reach common goals together? So what did you do then after a loss that large? What's the speech in the locker room? What's the conversation with the players the very next morning? What actually happens after a moment like that? So the main thing is you try to say something on the pitch together in a huddle, but it's extremely hard because whatever you say, nobody listens. Everybody's frustrated. Yeah, everyone's angry. And it's so loud, so you don't really reach them anyway, but you try to do something about it. And then I speak to the captain, the team captain, because she will be in the locker room with the players, and I kind of had a discussion with her. What did she expect, and what did she feel, and then I just, can you have a short speech in there to make sure you do something about that they stay together, because when you lose a big number, is everybody's frustrated, right? And then it's the media, because you have the press conference, you have the radio, you have the TV, and then you need to make sure that you have a clear view, and you know that they're gonna go hard at you, and then you need to work with your leadership. How do you have a purpose with that one? And I think for me, it's, the focus on how we play, the performance, how we're going to get better, where do we want to go, tough game. But you need to separate the emotions to stay calm in those situations, because if you go emotional, you're going to probably say stuff that doesn't help you in the long end, right? And then you need to analyze that game. So for 24 hours, I would say I'm not really there with my family, everything. I need to think a lot. I need to speak to people, different people. I call people from Sweden who saw the game. I call my assistant coaches. I might call the managing director. I want different views, because I want to make sure when I analyze it, I have different views and not too much emotions. And then obviously when you get the players back 2 days after, then it's more like, I need a plan. How do we take steps from here? And then I'm actually have a drive to, okay, now I have the plan. Let's make sure that it works. And then you have, meetings, you have feedback calls and everything. And that's how you need to work with winning and losing, because you're going to lose, and you're going to lose quite often, and you're going to win quite often, but you need to have the same procedure, basically. Yeah, I mean, even in business, we win and lose every day. We just don't always notice it, do we? Yeah, because it's not as tangible and as immediate. But a good work day versus a bad work day, those add up over time and affect business impact. But you guys have to actually live with it, with the whole world noticing. Yeah, and I mean, if you drive your company and you look at the first quarter of the year, how is the money going? How is the business going? You see some kind of progress, but we actually get the answer every Sunday if we're doing a good job or not a good job.
And even if you do a good job, some people are going to tell you didn't do a good job.
No, exactly. And I think that sometimes my wife tell me like, how can you work with this job? It's like but the main thing for me is like, you need to understand the business. You need to understand the passion, like we spoke about. I love that the fans have passion. I love that they have opinion, and it's okay, because I also know what I want to do for the long run. I also know what I want to do with my leadership, and my leadership is to make sure that everybody is on the same page where we are going. And that's also to make sure that fans get the story and the media understand where we are going, and the board from Tottenham know what we are doing. And that's the fun part here. But you can lose on Sunday and then everybody say that you're the worst coach ever. And that's fine for that Sunday. But I can promise you, I'm here of a reason. It's not because I'm a bad coach. It's actually I had a bad decision perhaps that game, or we had a bad day. But life goes on and we need to get up there again and keep going. And I think that's the leadership I want. And that's the leadership I want to show, that I don't give up. I have a new plan. I'm going to find a new way to make us take the next step. And sometimes you need to go through really tough games to actually get to the point where you're winning. And if you don't have the bad stuff, what's the point? Because then you're not going to feel the happiness when you win stuff. So you need to have the bad point to actually, experience the good stuff as well.
I mean, that's a good message for life in general, isn't it? Because we appreciate things more that we had to work for.
Yeah.
If somebody just gave you health, or somebody just gave you money, or someone just gave you great grades, it doesn't have the same impact. I had that conversation with my daughter recently, where it was just like, what would mean more to you if you took a really easy test and you got a perfect score, or you worked really hard in a class that you've always got a C and you ended up getting a B+ because you worked really hard? She's like, absolutely, the B+. Like, yeah. So what we work for, we end up valuing more, and it's helpful to get that feedback.
Yeah, but I think, and that's the feeling I want to feel like I'm alive. I want to feel like I'm living. And I think when I spoke about taking the brave choice instead of the safe choices, I know when I take a brave choice that it's going to be like a situation after that I need to deal with. But I'm ready to take that deal because I also know that it's going to give me, I'm going to develop, I'm going to make sure I feel like I'm alive. So, my kids are turning 15 this year. We moved when they were 13, not speaking too much English. I put them in the English school system and we were like, wow, this is so cool. And then after 1 week, my daughter, like, I want to move home. I don't like it here. And then it's like, okay, how can we find ways to fix this now? And then we find a Swedish school in London. And then we moved here. Then we have a hybrid living in London, but still have Swedish friends. And then you see them grow. And now I see them speak English fluently. And that's I see great. Them, being social with, and I also realized that they miss their friends from home, but they also get so much other stuff in it. And if you're learning to take that choice and then you're learning to live, you're going to value so much more when you actually get the good points than always doing the same stuff, basically.
Robert, it's obvious you're an optimistic and passionate person. I love it. I feel the energy. And if anyone's listening, they probably feel it. Watching will be even better with you. How do you maintain that optimism during challenging seasons? Because we all deal with that in life. And sometimes you see just the energy get sucked out of a person if they don't have the mental resilience. So like really tactically, how do you maintain that? How do you help your athletes maintain that belief in themselves?
My life hack is that I always look at what I'm doing. And even if I'm failing or not, I see it like learning. And when I do that, I'm just dealing with the consequences of that action. And if we're winning or losing, if I'm too optimistic and I feel like, okay, it didn't work, I want to show my players that I fail all the time, because I fail all the time. I want to show them that we should fail to take steps to learn. And I kind of, when you realize that, you don't really need to be home and regret stuff. You only need to fix stuff. So if I'm having a meeting with the staff or the players in the morning and I don't feel after that it was not the perfect meeting, I didn't nail it, then I don't go in and say, that was not good. I was just like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do it better. So that's like my mantra every evening when I go home. It's like, how do I do it better tomorrow? So Arsenal, we lost 5-0, obviously, right? So next game will be on Sunday against Man City, which is a big, tough game as well. So my mantra will not be, we lost 5-0. It's like, okay, how can I make it better the next game? And with that, you also need to be aware that you need to take the consequences. So in my role, I'm going to get fired a few times. In the sport industry, you get that. But it's also like, if you're scared of it, then you will not take the brave choices. And I'm kind of like, I know that it's going to happen once in a while. And it's okay, as long as I just keep going. And when you have that mindset, it's quite nice. And then you need something, not optimistic. And I think my wife is very pessimistic sometimes, but she's like neutral. But she can tell me, Robert, you're too optimistic. You need to make sure that. But I think it's a good mixture in life to have both. And I think, deal with the consequences, and then you can be optimistic to say.
What does your morning routine look like? So how do you start the day with a high performance mentality?
I mean, for me, it's the London traffic is terrible, so I drive quite early from home to get to the training ground. But I just grab a coffee in the car and I'm driving, and then I'm actually having 1 hour in the car before I come to the training ground. And that hour is amazing because then I can listen to music and start, focus on the day, what should I do. And for me, it's to prepare the whole day. And then when I come to the building, I need to be optimistic. I need to send energy. I need to be sharp with everything I do. I start the morning with basically make sure that everything is clear for the day. And then it's meetings with the technical staff, with the playing staff. And then it's preparation for the training. It's to make sure the training is good, to reflect on the training. Then we have lunch together and being a little bit social as well. Because like you said, we need to get to know each other. We need to have these meetings. You have a few individual meetings. Normally in the afternoon, we have yoga once in a week. I am a big fan of yoga.
As a group or individually?
No, we do it with the players and me and a few more staff members. I've done it like 3 years with my team. I think it's brilliant to work on being present. So the instructor, she's an American. She know what I want to do with the team to stay present in the games, to make sure you can control your breathing. It's a lot of breathing work there. And I think for me, it's like, how can we make sure that the players and staff can handle the pressure? How can you perform at a high level? I think yoga is brilliant in that way. So once a week we do that. We have mindfulness once a week as well with the sport psychologist. So I'm a big fan of the holistic perspective to make sure you can stay healthy and mindful. But then, in the afternoon it's more, it could be podcasts, it could be media, it could be press conferences. And then normally I drive home, reflect again, have a few meetings in the car, and then it's family time. I bring my kids to the training ground. I coach them in once a week.
Do you?
Yeah, I just love that. I have my son's team and I have my daughter's team. It's like, it gives me so much energy to go there and have a grassroots training with them and just give them the energy, and then trying to train 3-4 times a week as well to make sure I stay stable as well. But my evenings is with my kids at their training ground, and it's so fun.
So you coach both your kids?
I coach both my kids. So my daughter's team already have an academy coach. I'm his assistant. I'm just trying to support him. And then my son...
Is that easy for you to do, or you really have to fight yourself?
No, it's fine. He's a great coach, and I actually feel like it's quite nice to not have the pep talk all the time. But in my son's coaching team, I'm running that training, and I'm running with a lot of energy. And I think that's my happy place as well, to be with my kids. And actually, I love to be a coach as well in one way, because over there you can just send the energy instead of just tactical stuff. So it's a happy place for me.
At that age too, you're doing so much life coaching in kids as well, right? Yeah. You're helping them become the best version of themselves and to believe in themselves. It's not all about winning, because in the professional game, you have to field your best squad. But sometimes youth games, you're like, this kid needs confidence. I'm going to let them know I believe in them.
No, but exactly. And I think sometimes you like, how can you have energy to coach even more in the evening? But it's not taking energy. It's the opposite there, because when you go there, you are tired. Of course, you work the whole day. But then you find some new energy in your body, and then when you're done with that, you connect with your son, you connect with these kids, and you just feel like, that was a really good session. And then you come home and have dinner with your wife and family. It's actually really nice. It's the same. I have a project in Uganda, in Africa, with an academy there. Which I
was going to ask you about that. I want to know about the academy.
Sorry. No, so I'm a teacher in PE and geography. So when I was at the uni, we were in Uganda for 3 weeks, learning about developing countries and countries. And then I met so many nice people. I met so many kids. They were playing football on the everywhere without any footballs. So I was like, I need to do something, because I have so much stuff in my teams in Sweden. So I kind of, let's start an academy at this school where we were meeting this principal, and me and him started this academy, Vilahamn Soccer Academy. And then I just started to bring football boots, footballs. So I flew over there twice a year, and I brought friends so I could bring more, basically more equipment. And then people falling in love in that country because it's so beautiful. And once again, people are like, how can you do that? Why do you do that? I get so much energy from it. You do something good for people and you get energy from it. And when you speak about how my coaching journey has developed, I think my life journey has developed, because when I was doing that project, it was kind of starting a business, but it's not a profit business. It's only charity. But then a company wanted to sponsor with some money, and they saw the job I did, and they actually then recruited me to run this company when I was a teacher. So I was leaving the coaching career and the teaching career to actually build a company. And when I did that, then I got the chance to be a professional coach. I had to leave the company business. But when I was recruited for Tottenham, the main mission, my last interview was with Daniel Levy, and we didn't speak too much about football. We spoke about business and women's sports. And the Uganda project, which helped me to get the other company's project, helped me to develop my skills. So when I got this job in Tottenham, it's a mixture of my football career, coaching career, and my business career. So I think you build yourself your own story, and you find your way to succeed, and you build your own karma, I guess. So it's quite interesting to see the choices I have done outside football have also helped me to become the coach I am today.
Yeah, and you're building different muscles that you might end up needing to use in your primary environment. I think it's really important to have extracurricular activities as an executive or a leader, because you're broader. It prevents burnout because you have other areas in which to channel your energy. I also coach my son. I did coach my daughters for a while.
Yeah.
And similar to what you were saying, I didn't think I was going to have the energy for it. And then it became the highlight of my week. I just loved it, became passionate for it. And you're getting to see little boys and girls become team players, become leaders, get some resilience. You get to hear them give pep talks to each other, motivate each other. It's like
exactly.
It's joyful. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that's the part of leadership. You think that you're going to go up 4 o'clock in the morning and you're going to work 16 hours, 17 hours. That's not good for your leadership. If you're going to work as a good leader for your team, you need to make sure you work your hours, but you need to train and find ways to train. You need to find your happy places. And that could be friends, that could be family, that could be coaching your son or daughter, right? But I think if you don't do that, if you only work, you're going to lose that energy that you say, like, how do I give the energy? I give the energy at work because I get energy from my son's training, from my wife's. We have 2 days off or 1 day off a week. We go and have a lunch together. We have a beautiful exploring London. That gives me so much energy to come back to the training ground and actually give more energy. So it's the life puzzle that you need to fix. It's not working as many hours as possible. It's actually to find the happy places in your life as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So what happened in that meeting with Daniel Levy for you to say, yes, I also want this job? So you guys connected, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really long process. And for me, it was the first time I had a process with a club outside Sweden. So first interviews with Tottenham was, okay, they are interested, that's big, but I'm not going to get it. I'm quite young in a coaching career and everything. And then they flew me over to the next interview. And then I met, the second interview was with the CFO, Chief Football Operator. And it's like, okay, I'm probably quite close to get this job. And then they were like, okay, Robert is probably the one we got, but Daniel even need to have the last interview with him and confirm it. And for me, it's like, obviously I know people and I have respect of titles of what they are doing with, but for me, everybody's a person, everybody's, having their life, everybody's social, everybody can speak to each other. So I'm quite calm in those situations anyway. And the talk with him was really nice talk. And I got to know how he see Tottenham because he's been there for so many years. I got to see what he want to do with the club, the women's part of it and everything. And for me, it's actually, I'm coaching a women's team and I want to win titles, but the bigger picture for me as well is to grow women's sport. And if I can do that in a big brand as Tottenham Hotspur, it's actually a big benefit for me. And I'm speaking with you today. And I think that's actually the main thing what I want to be. I want to be helping women's sport to grow, women's football to grow. So in that interview with him, I kind of spoke about startups. I kind of spoke about how you need to find the potential in this product, and because it's like a startup, women's football, to be honest. And you're probably gonna need to invest a lot of money the first years before you get the benefit of it, but you don't get the money benefit first. You get you're branding yourself and you get a bigger brand. You get more different people coming to the games, and you need to see the potential as well. I think next generation people will actually go to women's games and fill the stadiums as well. That's when you get the money return on investment. So we spoke a lot about that, and that's how you basically speak about a normal startup if you want to have money. So great talk, and I think he bought into it, and I bought into the organic journey they want to do. It's not only like, come here, we want to win. No, we want to make sure we build the best facilities for girls' academy, women's side. They want to make sure they do it to the real want to big. So I think that's also what I want. It's not only to win. I want to make sure we are consistent and organic to make sure that women's sports stays.
Quick interruption. If you are enjoying the Excellent Leadership podcast, I have a small favor to ask you. could you please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review? It helps us grow the Excellent Leadership Podcast community and ensures we keep bringing you top-tier guests, powerful insights, and impactful episodes. Thanks for your support. Now, back to the show. So then you get a job like this. What happens in the first 30 days for a new manager?
For me, moving to England and meeting the staff before the players came and everything about it was feeling like I was in a movie or something. It felt like you could see yourself in third person. It was, where am I? I'm at the training ground at Tottenham. It's so many people. It's so many interviews. But after a quite short time, you realize, wow, the potential is so high. And I think for me, it's been in the men's game with it's more staff members, it's more, the men's game has been there for so many years. So then you realize your knowledge is actually good enough to make sure you can have a good development of the women's game. Because I think the women's game is so young in England. They haven't been around for so many years, and especially in Tottenham. And then you also realize that, because I'm a big fan of gender equity and make sure that I'm take stand for that. And then I just realized, wow, I can actually speak about gender equity and what we have done in Sweden, because Sweden is quite far, they have come far with gender equity. And I just realized the potential here is for my leadership, for my purpose, and for Tottenham to make sure they have a great women's team, and for the players there. I just felt so much happiness with, the potential is so high, and then you just need to start working, get together with all the staff, make sure they get it with the being present, showing, the professional, the game model, in the procedures, the meetings. So it's like running a business, of course. And it's like actually leading a team, not a football team. It's actually to lead. It's more like being a CEO than actually a coach, I would say.
What have you found are the ways to establish relationships with those staff members quickly, or the athletes quickly? Because you don't have a lot of time to start winning their trust or winning their willingness to receive from you as a leader, to choose to work for you as a leader, right?
Yeah.
You've a short window of time. They're going to make their judgments and assessments. What works?
Passion works. If you come with energy and passion, you can convince everybody to follow you. I had a good start because I came to a club who was almost relegated, and they were not in a happy place with where they were. So when you come with that and you come with passion and energy, they're probably going to buy into what you're saying. And the holistic perspective to make sure you get them on board and see them and listen to them. I think that's also very important if you want to have them to buy into what you're saying. And then I realized it's so many staff members, it's really hard to speak to 25 staff members all the time. Then I realized, being this hierarchy where you have head of performance, head of analyst, I need to lead the head of departments and trust them that they lead the people under them. So quite quickly I understood that I need to have this senior leadership team, the head of each department. They need to understand what I want, and then I need to trust them that they can lead the people under them. And I think that's the main thing as a leader. You shouldn't micromanage. You need to trust the hierarchy and the roles in it. And then when you do that, then you can just be a very good leader to listen to them and to support them and to push them. And when they come with stuff, you can just basically, they drive the area and you don't need to drive them. They drive you basically. And that's the leadership I want to have.
What's the process for selecting a team captain?
You need a lot of feedback from the environment and the group and what they've had, what they need. And then you also need somebody who can handling this new era of women's football where you're doing so much outside the pitch as well. So when you look at that, you need to find a character who can handle those areas and have the respect among the staff and the players. So for me, it was, who do we have? What kind of candidates do we have? And then when I realized that we have a extremely good candidate in Bethany, England, that was my call to her, because she was in the World Cup in Australia. That was my call first to her to ask, would you actually consider to be the captain? Because I think you could be a great role model for this young, talented team we want to build, and your experience is great. And she's also a really cool character, but still very calm. It is hard because you should work together for a while before you choose a captain, but sometimes you also need to go for the gut feeling where, okay, this is actually a good profile for this club. But once again, it's really hard to pick and choose, but they need to have the respect from the staff, from the players. They need to be a good role model on off the pitch, and you need to make sure they can lead the team for you, because I'm not want to be the micromanaged coach. I want to make sure that the captain leads the team. She's having the pep talk before we go out on the pitch. I don't want to be that leader who's in the centrum. I want to make sure I create leaders under me that can make sure that they are the leaders driving the team.
How much goes into coaching a team captain to be better at captaining, to be a more effective leader and to develop themselves? Or are managers usually choosing someone who's already great at all of that and therefore the coaching isn't as necessary?
I've actually learned to have a captain and a leadership group, which is normally the vice captains as well, and actually to coach them in leadership. And in one way, I have meetings with them every second week to make sure they don't work from the play to me. They work from me to the players in one way to make sure that we are on the same page. They are leaders working towards the squad. But then, since we have a sport psychologist full-time as well, I've had them having meetings basically every second week to work with the leadership, more like what experience do they have, what's the hardest point right now. So actually be coach in their leadership, because I don't think you should expect people to be good leaders just because you give them an armband, right? So we're working a lot with the sports psychologists now to make sure that they get the support to be better leaders and to actually develop the leadership part.
So you studied education, you enjoy leadership. What do you enjoy most about leadership?
In one way, it's the passion of working with people that can, reach some kind of goal where you see the happiness for them. I got a question a few months ago, what's the main thing you want to be, remember at? And I was like, I don't want to be remembered as the coach. I want the players to remember that year when they won and everything was amazing, and not like that was the year where Robert was coaching. It was actually that year when you won the title or when you did that. And then I'm going to be so pleased that I was the coach for that, but I'm not the coach that they speak about. I want them to speak about the environment, the goal they reach. We were so close last year. We were in the final of the FA Cup.
You were right there.
Playing in front of 76,000 people. First time ever they are there. And for being there is actually quite tricky because the top four in this country is so big and they are so experienced. So to be at that final was a magical moment. We unfortunately lost the game, but I'm so proud of what we made with that group already the first year. And I think that's what I'm looking at. Not winning, but actually see people reach a common goal. And then I just feel like I'm more happy for others than for myself, if you get what I mean. And I think that's why I'm a leader. I want to help my kids to reach their dreams. I want to, help the team to reach their dreams. And then I'm just happy.
How do you instill that belief in a team? Because teams often know that they might not be the highest payroll as well.
Yeah.
But I believe we can win and I believe we can find competitive advantage. How do you get that type of winning mentality just in everyone?
I think that's the hardest point when you know sometimes that you're going to compete against Arsenal, who has a bigger budget and they have national team players on all positions and so on. But the main thing is, if you don't believe in it, who should believe in it? And if you don't believe it, then how can you not tell the squad that I have a plan, I have a belief in you? But I think the main thing is for that is also to make sure you give them the trust to believe what you say. I can say whatever I want to them, but they need to feel it as well. And I think, I can be optimistic and show passion, but I also need to make sure I'm calm and give them the trust to make that happen. And sometimes it takes time. I think last year we nailed it. We were really brave, and then we had a few big knocks, and then you get one step back. You lost 7-0 against Man City last year. That was not a fun. But before that, we felt like we had to believe all the time. But then you need to work with your leadership. Okay, how do we change tactics to make sure they believe again? And this year has been a little bit more struggle because we had a few big losses again. And then you need to realize, okay, they're not going to believe you if you don't find a new way. And then, so I'm working every day basically to find ways to make sure they believe. And I also fail basically every week in part of it, because I also know that, okay, we need to find a new way now because we lost this game 5-0. They're not going to have the same belief in the next game. I need to change something. I need to speak to them. I need to find ways. So I think problem solving every week to make sure we find a way to still find the belief. And once again, you will not have it every week, but you need to, you keep going. You need to keep going.
With a competitive squad, how do you manage egos and expectations for playing? Because all of them want to be on the starting lineup, and they can't always be on the starting 11.
It's really hard, to be honest. And whatever you try to do, it doesn't really solve the issue anyway. I think sometimes you have a lot of talks with them who doesn't play, and they don't get the message, or they get upset, of course. But I think I'm just very honest. I'm just trying to speak to everybody who played the last week to this time we're going to choose this player. And I'm also understanding they're going to be upset. They're not going to buy into what you're saying. And it's a part of the game. But I just want them to expect and respect me for my decisions anyway. But that's really hard, actually.
For young coaches looking to follow in your footsteps, what advice would you have for them?
That's a good question. I think, don't try to please everyone. Don't try to be liked by everybody, because it's going to be really hard in situations. Just make sure you believe in what you're doing, and just make sure that you can stand for what you're doing. And then you need to deal with people who are upset or don't like what you're doing, but keep believing in what you're doing, because otherwise you're going to listen to too many other, different opinions, and then it's really hard to follow your pathway. Believe in your pathway. Make sure you listen to people, but still believe in what you're doing, and don't be too insecure in that.
So, slight transition. You left from the men's game to the women's game because you believe in it.
Yeah.
Where's the women's game going to be in the next 5 years?
In one way, I hope that it's going to be quicker than what I see right now. I thought it was a really good explosion here when England won the Euros and everything. And then you kind of, okay, is it actually going that quick? But I see the big games. I see who's coming to those big games. I see the social media, the fans, everything is happening. So in 5 years, I'm quite sure that most of the games will be played at better stadiums, and it's going to be a better product. I still think it's going to take one generation before we reach to the level where you see it as football and not women's football. I think the US is actually one step above, because they actually have the investment to make sure they only have a women's team, and they manage to find ways to entertain the fans and the fan base. But in 5 years, it will definitely be more people at the stands, more games on the big stadiums. But unfortunately, it's not that a quick change, because it's a lot of people working against it in one way, or doesn't really listen to it right now. So I think the next generation, that's when you're going to see the full power of women's football.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with the growth and the attention and the enthusiasm that's happening in the game. And you see it across all different levels, right? You see stadiums filling up.
Yeah.
In our world, we see people wanting to work in the women's game.
Yeah.
You see sponsorship dollars going up. We had a media executive on the show recently, and he shared just even traffic to the women's side of their website has grown considerably. But things still take time to bake in an oven, don't they? And so just for talent to develop and grow.
And I think you need to look at it in different ways and make sure that it's going to be I think you can look at Arsenal, how they have filled their stadiums. But it's not luck. They have had a really good plan how to do it over time. Tottenham, we are very young as a women's team, and we're trying to find ways. And I just think that everybody need to find their way to do it, because I feel like one thing is they deserve to have this game. They are so amazing athletes, but you also need to make sure that you find your way to make sure it stays sustainable. And I think that's the key for it. And I think you know it as when you see the kids coming to the games and everything. I think you just need to make sure they come to the game and explore, and then you're going to grow with it.
So, Coach, 7 questions we ask everybody when they're on the show is what we call our 7-question blitz. So, first one. What sports event have you never been to that you would love to attend?
I've never been to an NFL game, actually.
Never to any NFL game?
No, never.
So you don't have a team then yet? So
no team.
There's opportunities for teams to convince you.
Definitely.
I love that.
Definitely.
You need to go. NFL games are really fun in person.
Yeah.
3 people, living or historic, that you would love to spend a round of golfing with.
Oh, that's a good question. 3 people.
3.
I don't know.
No?
Is it like, no, it's just 2. No, I don't know.
It's too big. Give me 1.
I mean, in one way, I'm kind of like, can I find different ways, not football, because the first thing would be football, right? So I would like to speak to and listen to Nelson Mandela. That would be amazing stuff, right? For
sure.
His life, but it's when you look at that, then in football wise, who's the biggest one? It would be nice to speak to someone, past perhaps Maradona or Pelé or someone like that. And then obviously, like, it's a really hard one. I'm sorry, you stopped my brain here.
You gave me some good ones there, though.
Yeah,
you gave me Maradona. You gave me Nelson Mandela. So those are good ones to go golfing with.
Yeah.
What's the greatest sports memory that you have?
I actually think the final at the FA Cup, we're losing, but for me, winning and losing is not the biggest memory. Is how you can see that the Wembley is a full stadium. My dream to come to Wembley, to lead the team out at that stadium and see the fans. It's like one side is completely with Tottenham fans, the other one with Man United fans. After the game, we meet at with the fans afterwards, and they're singing, and it's like that was massive for me. And my kids and my wife, my brothers from Sweden was there, and to show that the power of women's football is already here in one way. And that was just amazing.
Oh, for sure, I bet.
Yeah.
And you guys will be back there again. You've proven you can be there. I find those moments in life can sometimes be some of the most fulfilling, or even can amplify you to the next level.
Definitely.
I don't know if you saw, this was the US side of the world, but someone recently, a handful of months ago, noticed that Jalen Hurts, who just won the Super Bowl, that the screenshot on his phone many, many, many months after he lost the Super Bowl was still a picture of him at the Super Bowl, but covered in the confetti of the Chiefs, the opposite team. And he had it on his phone every single day. He wanted to be reminded every day that he didn't want that confetti to fall on him again.
Yeah, exactly.
And it fueled them. And they win a couple of years later. And just those moments can be really defining. And you also have to stop and say, it's an accomplishment. We made it here. And not just view it as a defeat, but as a success. So I love that you use that as one of yours.
Yeah, but I think that you also need to show everybody that success is not always winning. Success is actually reaching a goal you had and learn from that. So I think that's the main thing there.
Yeah, I try to do that internally with our own team, because you pitch for projects and you don't get them all.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to go, hey, congrats that we pitched.
Yeah.
Because 8 years ago, we might not have been in that room. 5 years ago, we might not have been in that room. We're now in that room.
Yeah.
So that's a win. Let's celebrate that.
And I think you need to celebrate the stuff in life where you actually have some really good moments in it as well. If you're only going to look at winning or losing or everything, it's really hard. You need to find the good stuff in when you're losing as well, because it's so much good stuff you're doing as well in a company or in a team as well. So
yeah.
But that was a big moment for me.
I've tried to do that with just habit trackers in my own life too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the milestones take a long time to get to.
Yeah.
But to celebrate okay, I did get 10 miles this week. That was one of my goals. Hey, I did work out 5 times a week. That was one of my goals. I did snuggle my kids before bed a certain number of days this week. That was one of my goals, right? Just celebrating the daily wins.
Yeah.
You know this as a coach more than anybody.
But I think
helps you get to that goal.
Yeah, but you asked me how can you bring the energy and passion all the day, and I think that's because you celebrate these small stuff. Or when my kids are succeeding with that, or my doing that in that game, that's so much joy with my life, and that's actually a success to see her meet a new friend or whatever. So I think you need to celebrate the small stuff, because when you have a tough period of time, it's you need a glimpse of the good stuff as well. Otherwise, it's really tough.
Yeah. What's something about you most people wouldn't know?
That's a good question. I think I'm very humbled and I'm very optimistic, right? But I think I'm a very bad loser. So whatever I do, if I play paddle or if I play deck of card or whatever, I don't like to lose.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
I've got one of those in my household. It's also me.
No, Christmas and when you have these board games, it's not a good moment for
It's
me.
actually dangerous. Yeah. Board games can be dangerous in some households.
Yeah, no.
Our household falls into that trap at times.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, it's not always about winning. Sometimes it's about bonding. Who made that up? Somebody who's not competitive.
That's
right. It's always about winning.
No, I know.
Yeah. Do you have any professional pet peeves? Pet peeve.
What's that? Things
that would annoy you if people do it in the workplace. So it can be as serious as, let's say, making excuses or being negative. I'm fine if it's as simple as people who don't send agendas ahead of meetings, but just something like that people do at work.
But I'm a big energy. If you don't have a good day, or if you are not having the best day, but don't take energy from people. So I think the main thing is for me is to not spread bad energy, and that can be different with body language or how you are in meetings or whatever. But that's one thing I think. If you don't have a good day, it's okay, but don't steal energy from anyone else. And I think I'm not a big fan of meetings, so don't book meetings where you don't need to be at.
Yeah,
that's useless.
I've found that we'll usually fill the entire time of a meeting. And some meetings might need to be long for strategy.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it doesn't need to be 30 minutes because it will become 30 minutes.
Yeah.
10-minute meetings are okay. 15-minute phone calls are acceptable. And just trying to find some of those efficiencies where they're allowed to be there.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely. And then emails. I think if you're in the same building, do you need to send the email, or can you just run over and speak to them? Because I think you read an email and you kind of, does she or he mean this or that? And I'm going to answer it. I like this social, when you actually speak a few meetings, and I think that's actually what you should do. So less emails and more short chats.
So if you weren't in your current role as head coach of Tottenham Hotspur women and you were not allowed to work in sports, what would be your dream job?
I would love to be a CEO for a big global company, because I would like to explore my leadership in that agenda. And I think I want to have a global company because I really like different culture and people, and I'm very keen on reaching a common goal. So I will be hopefully a CEO for a global company.
Yeah. The challenges of navigating multi-cultured organizations are so different than local ones. I think about that even just in coaching, when you have numerous nationalities on the same team or numerous languages on the same team, and you're trying to build culture.
I mean, I choose to find players from all over the world. I have the Chinese
That's your geography background. That's why.
Yeah, but I think it's for me, it's like if you're going to create this amazing environment, then you need staff members in both gender, different age groups. You need players who are different characters from different culture, because that's when you get the perfect dynamic of a group, I would say. Because then you have so much, you speak that language, you're learning stuff, and then you are curious about that. And I think that's the world I want to live in. I don't want to live in a world where it's only these people and from this country. I want to have a global world where you kind of like different stuff, but you can find ways to collaborate. Next time I'm in London, where do I need to eat? I mean, I'm a big fan of views. So I would say pick one of the restaurant at the Shard. Okay, that's a good call. Yeah. That's a great call. Yeah. Robert, so fun spending time with you. Thanks for coming to the office and letting me hear some of your story and being on the podcast. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you.